Although I care about food and I care about, to some degree macros, not as much anymore. Nothing matters except who is growing our food and who controls the food in our world. Mm-hmm. That's where the power is, and that's the money. Mm-hmm. This is the only deal when everything comes back to the food and who has it and who's spraying it. And then I look at the health issues that people are coming to me with, and just in general, the exponential rates increasing of autism and breast cancer. Yeah. All of these health issues all come back to the products being put on our food because they're not being grown correctly.
Hello, welcome to the show. This is Emotional Badass, where Moxie meets mindful. I'm your host, Nikki Eisenhower, life coach and psychotherapist. And on today's episode, I'm excited to interview Emily Schromm. She's a nutritional therapy practitioner, herbalist, and host of the podcast Meathead Hippie. Emily is an entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. She's appeared on MTV's Challenge and Women's Health magazine. Emily's latest venture, Peel, P-E-E-L, is an ag tech company focused on bridging the gap between farmers and growers to showcase the abundance in agriculture today. On to the interview. So let's get into it. Thanks for coming on, madam.
Nikki, it's so good to reconnect with you. It's been so long. I'm so happy to have this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you so much because when I get a lot of lift from looking up your content and realizing there's another empath out there that's always doing something different. I think you give me so much permission for me to have my hand in very, very different things. So I very much appreciate that about you. Instead of being, one little niche, you could ever be one thing at a time. So I appreciate your empath sort of expansion qualities in that way. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing, because you have been doing a lot. Tell us about the show you're coming off of first.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I just filmed a reality TV show called the MTV's The Challenge. And this happened years and years and years ago when I was 20 years old. I got casted for the real world. It was this wild ride. I think we might have talked about this a little bit in some of our past conversations, which was just the exact manifestation of when you say, I'm ready for something different, the door opens in the most unexpected places. And at 20 years old, it happened to be reality TV. And I was so mentally and emotionally unprepared for this experience. But ultimately, we're not unprepared, right? We're always given what we are ready for, but we have to step up to it. So I really had to go through a big 10-year transformation of understanding I have issues with myself. I am not okay watching myself on TV. I am in complete disarray about comments. I'm too fragile. All these things that happen when you put yourself in the public eye. And so it really put me into the self-transformation process. But I had not said yes to a challenge kind of for 10 years, maybe 14 years. Really, I really took a lot of time off, and I met you. I had a gym that I was building and all of these beautiful things. But as soon as I decided this chapter of health and wellness, although it's such a part of me, and this is where I get into astrology of it's such my south node, like my south node is so about physical embodiment. I am ready for this next phase in my life. And for me, that has to do with systems and farming and helping people not just help their body, but to help heal Mother Earth. So I decided to sell the gym, sold my gym. The day after I sold my gym, MTV called and said, do you want to do another one? And I was like, if this isn't one of those like door open, door shut thing, like, yes. So I said yes. I went to Vietnam. I filmed it. It didn't go as expected, which is probably the best thing. It was one of those beautiful life journeys where I really understood so much more about myself. I felt so good. It was so good to have this experience where before showing up to it, there was still parts of me that weren't fully integrated. And I'm not saying that I'm a fully integrated, like I have no shadows and all my healing is done, but there's been so much healing work. I think that your listeners and you and me, we've been doing, but we don't really get experiences that remind us how far we've come in this literal way. So I got this literal experience of like, no, you need to see how far you've come. And I'm like, that's my win. This is so good. So it was just a beautiful way for me to really just show up for who I am, which is, of course, this combination of athletic and competitive and meathead. But also, I am just here to help people access their highest, deepest self. And I am in that journey because I needed that myself. I had to go to a place of really, really low lows to realize nothing in the physical world really matters. We're always going to be spinning around and around unless we tap into that knowing and to that higher self. So that was just such a beautiful opportunity to just show up and bring that. And it was fun. Some components, some were not fun. And so I decided this challenge, which of course is something I want everyone to experience, of putting themselves in hard positions and trying something new. Can we do that without the drama? Can we do that without self-sabotaging, without, ultimately it's two things. Was so observant living in that house because I'm living with 40 people, 40 cast members.
Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And all of us have our shit, it's not like we're there for a reason. So to have that many personalities, that much energy, I could really feel how quickly I was taking on other people's energy. I could feel when I wasn't allowed to separate, what my own ability to kind of feel my space and when I was off and on, and it was so fast. It was really, really good for me to get that check of where are you in your space? And can you really lean into protecting it and also not mixing energy in the way that you're wanting to, because you want to help things, you want to fix things. That's not yours. That's not yours to fix. That's not yours to handle. So all these real upfront lessons, but ultimately it came down to it was tough because we're seeing very literally in a competition game show, is it coming from fear or is it coming from love? And I felt so ready to show up and be I'm here not to prove anything, but I just want to try things. I want to expand. I want to be put in hard positions. Whereas before it was, I don't know if I can do it, so I'm going to try to prove to myself I can, right? Which is ultimately a fear of the underlying foundation of fear. So it was just hard to see that everything that the show is of course based on fear, and to try to get it to be based on love is not my role because that's not how it was built. So that was good, but how can I hold that integrity? And it was just tough. It was a beautiful, tough experience. And now I just feel it's really important to kind of bring that awareness and also that challenge competition into a place that is only with love, which is why I'm hosting the retreat that I'm hosting, which is to give people that experience of I'm nervous, I'm going to try something new, I'm going to work with my team, I'm going to have a moment of adrenaline, but I'm also doing it from a place that is just about nourishment of self. It's not about, am I better than you, or putting someone down so that we could be better, right? So that's the recap of my experience this year on MTV's The Challenge.
So I've got a question for you. I've wondered for a long time. Do you think of yourself as full extrovert, or are you ambivert? I am definitely introverted, fully introverted. And I think I didn't put myself out there till I was about 37. I cannot imagine the emotional roller coaster had I had cameras on me at 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are you more introverted, or are you ambiverted or extroverted? What do you think you are in that way?
I always think of it. I do think of it in human design terms. So have you gotten into human design?
A little bit. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a true introvert because I always need people to experience the life that I'm supposed to live. So I feel expansive when I'm around people. I feel even when I was living for a year in the van, traveling around farm to farm, me and my cat in my van, there was moments where I thought, I don't need people. But then, oh my God, was I wrong, right? I go into a coffee shop and all of my channels start to turn on. And I would get ideas, not even talking to anyone, just being in the energy. It's the same when I go to a gym. I don't like only working out in my own gym because I have to sometimes go into an environment where there's two other people, even if they're 30 feet away, are still working out, because that energy actually is quite important for me. So I feel I am naturally actually quite extrovert, but this year and last year, especially with some of the, you have to tell me if I get too annoying with all this astrology talk, because
I'm fine with the astrology.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Roll with it.
My Saturn right now it's in Pisces in my 12th house. So I am very introverted in the sense of like, what is hidden, what is kind of underworld. So it's been the most introverted I've ever been, but I still feel this deep desire to connect with people and a need to connect with people. And I can kind of check myself, those kind of lists that we have of before we fall off the cliff, right? So like, here's these bad habits that I'm going to go towards if I don't catch myself soon enough, if I don't, do X, Y, and Z. It could be drink water. It could be take my magnesium. It could be talk to somebody throughout the day. It's like all of these things. And then all of a sudden I'm emotionally eating in my van and I can't stop it. Right. So I'm like, so I really got clear about, okay, I have needs, even if I don't feel like I'm an extrovert. There is something really important about me engaging with people that help me become more myself. And that, of course, is a lot about my human design and the fun intricacies of human design that really showed me that and helped me almost come to terms with it. Because as we know, that hyper independence that I probably had from 20 to 30 of I don't need anybody, I'm fine. That was all this trauma response that I had to redevelop. So yeah, I would say I'm mostly extrovert, but gosh, I really do love my space.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I have a hunch that as we get older as empaths too, that we're going to go in and out of more of a more clearly defined introverted part. And then in other ways, maybe a more clearly defined extroversion. And what I see when I'm working with people is a lot of, I think, societal messages if we're kind of supposed to be one way. And I think for empaths, what we're learning and what we're dealing with is we really do have to go in and out of taking care of these, not just different parts of ourselves, but sometimes completely oppositional parts of ourselves that seem like polar opposites all at the same time. Yes. And I think my younger self fought that so hard and felt like something was so weird about that and not how it should be. And the older I've gotten, it's such an embracing of, no, I really am multifaceted and what that means for me day to day, moment to moment, even experience to experience about managing the intricacies and the complexity of that in a way that's simple enough to actually be able to manage it, even though it's complex, if that makes sense.
Totally. And this is a tangent, but have you ever seen the Netflix series OA?
No. What is it?
I mean, truthfully, I'm such an empath. You might relate to this. I can't even go through feelings on shows that are too intense. Like I scrub on Netflix because I don't want to sit in that emotion because it's like some of that anticipation and scariness and all that. Like I'm not down for it. I don't want that. I'll look at spoilers. So I will give that with a preface. The show has some of those components, but it really is, especially I just kind of was obsessed with these ideas they were bringing to the mainstream world, which were, we are so much more than this individual body with one lifetime. We're a bunch of experiences. And so it made me think of what you were saying. There's a point in the show where she basically travels dimensions and she kind of goes, it's like she's now all of a sudden upgrading into this new life and she has to use all of her skill set that she used to have to kind of move into this new sense of self. And it all came down to her unlocking the parts of us at a young age that had the most trauma. So where did we have experience or hold the most trauma? At what age was that? Can we go to that place? And then from that place is our most beautiful expansion, right? It's where we can integrate all of these parts of us. And that's what that felt like when you were saying that. It's like, yes, how do I, of course, appreciate where I'm at, but realize like every time I get somewhere that I think I'm finished, it is just an opening to a new place where I can have more skill sets come in, whether that's past lives, whether that's support from, our highest, whatever that looks like for you in whatever religion or spirituality practice. It was like really cool to see that on a Netflix series. I'm so into this just for that reason, that they're kind of giving this life, that this is a possibility that we can expand and kind of pull from our past while also elevating ourselves with new skills knowing we are going to need those skills if we really want to live and embody the life that we want. We really have to consistently upgrade for these goals that we are bringing into the world.
I think it's an acceptance practice. I really think that our inner wounded inner child psychology really, without us realizing it, wants us to just settle. It's like, okay, I learned this next thing and then we're done, right? Like, I think it's kind of a human default of I'm done, right? Like I finished the 12th grade and I'm done with high school. And we think in life, I'm going to learn something and then I'm going to be done with that. And it's never done. And I think we can either fight that all the days of our lives till the very last day, or we realize, oh, there's a way I can partner with this and just melt into this reality of change is the constant. I am never going to hit this settled point where I just exhale and go, oh, my learning here is done. No more experience for me. It's always going to keep unfolding. And it puzzles me that this isn't more of sort of on the surface of how we live or as a, as normal as taking a breath or eating lunch, like that it's not sort of maybe passed around like as the wisdom that we're figuring out. Cause I think this is especially for empaths, deep feeling people, if you accept this, it's so much easier than fighting it.
Wow, so beautifully said. And yes, it should be as accepted as lunch, right? And what I think of when I have that same conversation with people that are possibly, as we can, an outside view can give you a good perspective of our own habits and traps, right? Because when we're in them, we don't even know we're in them. And then sometimes we know we're in them and we just don't know how to get out of it, right? So one of the perspectives I've really been leaning into is this idea that even though it doesn't seem as if it is a desire for control, when we have a path in front of us, whether it's the certification or whether it's a certain program or whether it is a certain physical thing that we check off, right? That for us feels safe because now I know I have some sort of container, and for a moment in time, nothing else matters. I can release control because I'm in it. And that makes sense. Like that's in many ways really healthy. It's masculine energy. It's that structure that sometimes holds us and contains us in all of our feelings and of all of our creation. But so many times I really do have to speak about this because it's saying, okay, just because I have this, it's almost like we're bouncing from one mechanism to the next. It is just our way of masking our worry. It's masking our fear. It's masking this feeling that we don't fit in. So we need to figure out how we are going to fit in this wild puzzle of the world. And if we can kind of address that fear, especially if we're like, oh, okay, that's why I'm trying this and this and this. And as soon as I get done, it's like, what next? It is me recognizing if this is a fear of, I just sometimes feel out of place, and I accept that it's okay to be out of place in a world that isn't really designed for us magical feeling beings to thrive. Okay, I accept that. But then that means the only way to pivot this to be a higher expression is if I am completely enamored with my creative capacity. I am creative and I'm magic, and I expand from that place, seeing my unique individuality through my creative expression. And I think also the word service, giving that to something other than just ourselves. So I've really leaned into this conversation again and again recently, which is when I see the worry of checking the box and kind of the container is just a bouncy bounce machine that's kind of all the same thing, just different pattern, different players, or same pattern, different players. Ultimately, it's seeing yourself in that and rising above it with this powerful, feminine, creative energy, knowing that your gifts are here to be of service and that you aren't supposed to look like you fit in, and you're not supposed to try to fit into the world that currently has existed. Like, it's up to us to really rebuild this new world where everyone does fit in, because the more off you are and the more weird you are, the better. So I had to come to terms with that because, of course, as a young kid, I was so weird. I still feel so weird. Even in that house with 40 people, I'm like, do I belong here? What's wrong? And the sense of belonging. And that's been a core thing coming up for people. No, and it's just so good that you said that and expressed that, because if we all know, we all feel the same way, then all of a sudden it's not so isolating. It's just such a deep comfort.
And if we're different, which is beautiful. I mean, we want people to be different on the planet, but when we grow up feeling different, it's so easy to take that difference and make it wrong. And make it bad. In the acceptance of, I'm one of the weirdos. Like I get a lot of freedom in just owning I'm one of the weirdos. I'm so glad I'm one of the weirdos. I don't want to not be one of the weirdos. And so when I'm in a space, if I get a vibe or somebody looks at me like she's being real weird right now, instead of cringing from what I think is a real biological directive for us to be tribal. So I think when we're weird, that's where the fear comes from. It's, oh my gosh, if the tribe doesn't accept me. I mean, many years ago, we would have frozen to death or starved to death if the tribe was like, no, we're leaving you behind. You don't make the cut. Like it would have really scared us in terms of our life depending on being included. So I think modern life gives us this really interesting permission that it's okay and safe to be more different maybe than ever before. But I think at the biological level, it freaks us out. And our biological system goes, wait a minute, are we going to die? Is this okay? And we can really rise above that and take care of ourselves and hold ourselves by saying, no, we're not going to die. It's okay for me to be weird in this context and be the outlier or the oddball amongst this group of people. In fact, let my weirdness be an exposure for everybody else, because that's a good exercise too. Not just the physical exercises we do for our bodies, but these are the exercises that help us all, I think, expand and understand. Yeah, we can make space for all the difference on the planet. And when we do, I think all the drama can die down.
Yes. And she did it, so can I. He did it, so can I. They did it, so can I, right? It's this powerful light is so fast moving, right? Like that's what's so gorgeous about this whole experience of being human and choosing love over fear, even though there's some weird shit happening in the world. It's like when light happens, you don't need, this when we're trying to black out our room, trying to fall asleep, and there's a tiny, tiny, tiny little light all the way in the kitchen that somehow made its way into your room, right? It doesn't take that much for it to really make an impact. And so then as soon as that gets compounded, it's like ascension happens so quickly. It's so incredible. It's like, I'm so grateful for that. This might be interesting to you. There is something shifting in the next 3 years. So in 2027, there is a change of tribal circuitry to individual circuitry. So that whole concept that you just said, there's a potential for that to no longer be true for the future generations or even in our own lifetime. So I'm really excited about that because it is the emphasis. We're feeling that shift of this is about my individual creative expression in my solar plexus. It's about my emotional experience guiding the way, not my intellectual experience. And from that, it's a lot less emphasis on who's around and how, although we always need people. It's not as much about who's around and how to make this work. It's accessing that individual power and letting that shine that I'm so excited to see that shift happen. So that feels really good and really needed. Like we need to all access that type of power for us to change this world around.
I think the nuance of that for me too is that, there's so much pushback against, oh my gosh, it's like the me generation. And it's all about the self. That's such a cheap way to look at it that doesn't get at what it really means is that I think when we really heal ourselves and give ourselves permission to be the expressive beings, to be in the experience of life, we actually connect more with each other. We become a force of giving permission to give into your own weirdness and to express that. And it makes us a richer human fabric, like a more vibrant human, colorful fabric. And that does give the way that we're mirrors for each other. It gives a permission. It lets somebody else see, oh my goodness, if you did this, well, then maybe I could do this. And if we all tapped in to that personal power, that is really, I think, the road to our collective power. So that individualization isn't about pushing people away or being isolated. It's actually about expressing more so that we actually can connect more.
Yes, yes, yes. And this comes back to like literal terms of the magnesium, right? Like how diehard I am about magnesium for people is because if we can't individually understand stability and groundedness within ourselves, and magnesium being the element of stabilization, if we are missing that because of our food and because of the way things are farmed and because of extra medication, because of our water, right? Of course, we're never going to be able to have that internally to even think about taking care of other. And so I really come back to, especially in the spiritual world and in this metaphysical world, and kind of making sure it's as light and bright and expansive as possible. It's always knowing we're on track when we are able to look up and see other. And that's the goal. But it never can happen when we are never looking inward, right? So it's inward, inward, inward. What I don't want is people to get stuck in the inward, which we already addressed. If I see that, it's that worry of, am I doing enough in my own day to day?
Approval.
And then it's like, no, again, back to looking up. Creative expression and service. Those are the two core themes that help you access it. Because I do think even though somebody has gone through the supplements and done the inner work, there are still people coming of like, but what now? What next? I'm doing all the things and checking all the boxes. It's tapping into that higher elevation of what it means to hear what the world needs and to feel and trust that our body has powerful creative expression to contribute to it. But yes, you're so accurate that there is nothing that can really change unless we are actually quite selfish. And selfishness has not been really rewarded in our lifetime. So it's a weird thing to be like, wait, I can be selfish? And it's like, yes. Be selfish, understanding that energy, which I think, again, human design teaches us like this ability, and our astrology too, like seeing who you are, and this powerful self-awareness accesses a part of you and your gifts that you don't even know you have. So we, of course, feel a little bit like, what am I here for? Why am I even, life feels flat.
What's the point?
What's the point? It's especially if we are at all connected to news at all, there's no way that I would have any hope if I was unsure of who I was, didn't feel like I had any creative potential, and was watching the news. That's a disaster for me, right? I would just be so I feel like it's understanding like, okay, cool. The baseline support for self. And remembering we're doing this because ultimately your satisfaction really doesn't get fully turned up the way it can unless we're creative and of service to the world as a whole. So that's what we're here for. And that's so beautiful. All of us have had that individual journey, and we have that individual journey. And it's not like an easy one, right? Because you definitely have to like sometimes throw bombs in your past life to do it. It's not like, oh, effortless. Here it is. Like I've thrown some bombs in some things, Nikki, just to like figure out, okay, this is what universe is calling me to do. But it's so rewarding because you get to access the connection as a whole with other people and trees and plants and weather in a way that is so embodiment. It's an embodiment of our entire experience, like what we're supposed to be feeling as a human in this life is that type of full body sense of I'm so much a part of something bigger. And that's, we need to access that daily.
I love that you're saying the purpose is satisfaction. I think so many people look for fulfillment and some kind of higher purpose as this outward thing that they need to do or perform or create or get to, when it's actually about being more satisfied. That really is the fulfillment. And when you're feeling more satisfied, you naturally give more. And that doesn't have to be higher order. It doesn't like you've got a podcast, I've got a podcast. It doesn't have to be broadcasting to the world. It can be the way you interact with your child neighbor in that moment. And she notices a little worm and you guide her through the amazingness of that little worm inching across the land. I mean, it's all, the entire joy of the world is contained like right there in those little moments. And I think so many empaths would have so much more peace and ease if they just sort of sat back into their own lives and gave themselves permission to find like what makes me satisfied, like what really fills me up, and allowing that to be more of the path to purpose than looking for this big outward thing.
Oh, yes. That is so beautiful. It's like, I know I'm on track, and I know this is a good example of my dad. You know, he struggled with some really big, heavy mental health stuff the last few years. And it was always kind of this feeling of, all right, is he going to be okay? I don't know if he's going to be okay. I don't know. And, you know, we always have these experiences with our family that are so important for us to go through. But it was the best, most beautiful moment when he sent me a text of how loud the birds were in his backyard. And I just had this lightning bolt of information of when people hear the birds, the nervous system is right. Everything is okay. They are themselves okay. And I just thought, what a beautiful gift to know every time I hear a bird now, like an appreciation of like, good job, nervous system. Yes. And wishing that for everyone, because how many people don't hear the birds, and that's okay. But now I know once I do hear them, gosh, I'm so grateful to hear that and enjoy that. And just like the earthworm, you said, it's this sense of awe that even though we hear about it and we, you know, other people might see us in awe, it's like this disconnection. Like, I can't feel that. I don't have that sense of awe. It's an earthworm.
Right. Or it needs to be bigger. That's not enough. Like that doesn't hit hard enough. That worm made my day. Yes. That's the point. Yes. The worm can make your day. Yes.
It can. It really can. I mean, it's so, and that's what I think I've, especially now, so I'm on this beautiful ranch and it's with 3 horses, and these horses have taught me so much, because I've realized that if we can't get there ourselves, if we are struggling finding that, the gift of the world has been animals, right? This I mean, oh my God, I'm just so grateful for the animals in the world, because that's what will get people to that space, right? It might not be an earthworm, but it could be like, you know, your cat or your dog or a giant horse that all of a sudden you get to have this beautiful experience with. It's seeing like, okay, we have humans and we have earth. And then all of a sudden I just saw all these animals as bridges. And it's like that they're here for our consciousness to get on board with the entire experience of we're all in this together, right? Their winning is our winning is their winning, our true winning, not what we see. So yeah, the success and the grandiose and the bigness that we've become so accustomed to is so silly in the grand scheme of things.
So it was so fun to watch you for that year, living out of your van and just kind of tooling around to little grow spots and farms and like just seeing all like just nature. And then you've got like, are you still in Colorado? Like where is this farm? Where are you?
No. So I, as soon as I sold the gym, I took my van and cat. We road tripped all the way through Utah and all the gorgeousness of Arizona and finally landed in California. Then I went and filmed the show, in Vietnam. I came back after the show and I was doing the same thing in California, kind of up and down the coast, but really aware. I think this is what the van taught me the most is, especially as a creator, really understanding your stability and your root chakra. There's like, you can do a lot of exercises and a lot of support mentally and somatically to get grounded. But there's a point, my body said, we're not creating until you're rooted. So I was like, okay, I'm looking for something a little bit more consistent, even if it's hubs, right? I'm okay being in hubs. And then this magical thing happened where I ended up saying yes to helping cook for a retreat for 25 people. And just came a little bit early, parked my van at the ranch, found out they had 3 horses. The person who owned the horses was leaving, exiting the property. The horses had no one to take care of them. And I was like, this is my destiny. It was like, everything makes sense. So
I'm here.
Yes. So and there's like, it's been amazing because I am learning how to train them. All of them one of them's pretty good with people, but has so much trauma. So each one of them has this beautiful story that is just such a reflection of humanity and has been such a gift to be with them, learning boundaries, learning how to, from getting them on a halter to halter training them to helping them get groundwork practices. And it's just been, I'm obsessed. This is amazing. So that's in Northern California, which is where we're hosting this beautiful challenge retreat. It's all the same property, 700 acres. It's just gorgeous. It's really this redwood meets oak nature sanctuary. That's, the beauty of Northern California. I mean, I just am so in love with this state. I know it gets a lot of crap, like there's a lot of people that talk shit on California, but the ecosystem of California.
Yes, the nature is so separate from the politics.
Yes. Wow. Like it's just so stunning. And I've also been kind of bouncing back to Hawaii as well because of this new project called Peel, like an orange peel. So it's been really beautiful. We have a 1/4 acre that we're farming, and we're expanding that to 5 acres and just growing a bunch of food for the community at a place. The name of it is Taravana. And it's just been great because for me, it's about how do I engage in this. Of course we want to take care of our physical body. That's important. Yes, we want to take care of our spiritual body. It's underestimated, what we can do with that. But we also really have to give. We have to figure out where we're being of service and how to activate self within the bigger picture. It's really what comes down to this place represents all that with the retreat in this beautiful gathering of women in April, and then a co-ed event in September that I'm hosting.
So tell us a little more about the event, because I know that people will want to know this answer because I want to know. You are a physical beast. Like, do you need to be a physical beast? Like I'm athletic, but I wouldn't say I'm an athlete, and I'm in pretty good shape. Like, how much shape do you need to be in?
Oh, I love this question. No, this is so good. So this is definitely the ranch itself since it's 700 acres in Northern California, there are lots of hills. So I created this little fun training program that gets people really comfortable with hill walking.
Okay.
But honestly, like, I know that I'm kind of a full send person, but I want every person to feel comfortable with this because it will be amazing. I mean, it's tough, but it's not doable. And you have teammates. Depending on which retreat you come to, you might have a bigger team, you have a smaller team. So there's components of it that's, I want to take on this task while you take on this task. So there's an engagement of like always being able to express what your needs are. But I feel there's like nothing more important in the world right now. This is a little biased, but I just think the masculine energy activation of helping people train for something, get excited about using their physicality, and then just showing up for something that might be hard, but also they're going to be able to do, so that's the main answer is everyone will be able to do it to any extent. There's nothing more beautiful about that transformation that happens and that activation. So it's hard, but it's very doable. And then there's tears. And then you can obviously lean on your teammates for the things that you're like, I'm not doing that. So hopefully that answers your question. It's 5 days, 4 nights. So the whole experience is you come in, you fly into Northern California, either San Francisco or Santa Rosa. We pick you up. It's just for me, the core is this group of people that's coming together, right? Because you know as well as I know, it's like, we need to find our people right now. There's some big wolf energy. It's like finding your people, connecting with people. We break you up into your teams. There's, of course, in between all of these challenges. Every day is a challenge that is a couple of hours, but then there's horse therapy and horse workshops that teach you about our horses and horse engagement and their massive energy. I just learned this recently, but you know how we have like an aura of maybe 8 feet out around us.
Mm-hmm.
Horses are 50 feet.
50?
50.
Whoa.
Their heart is so big, that heart energy. So they are vortex portals. So that's why when you're around them, blood pressure comes down, heart rate comes down, your nervous system, your inner child comes up. And then there's this engagement that you don't even have to ride a horse. You can just be in their energy and you heal some frequencies that you didn't even know you needed to heal. It's like big, big, powerful stuff. So that's what I'm most excited about, is to get people around these horses. And then farming, because that's such a big piece of learning how to get either in your backyard some food growing, or getting you engaged in the local food supply chain, which is all about Peel and this big project that I've been working on. So really good local healthy food, amazing people, cacao ceremonies, all the woo.
Yay.
And then, of course, some badass competition.
That sounds lovely. That was a great descriptor of that event. Thank you, madam.
You're so
tell
welcome.
us more about Peel.
Yeah. So peel, like an orange peel, I just think this is a great example of what we were just talking about. Like in the I of my body, my health, my spirituality, there's, of course, so much growth that can happen, but I definitely felt that I bumped up against that growth edge, and there was nothing else to do except just, that feeling of like, there's more. Wait, there's more. Oh, there's more. Mm-hmm. And so I really, as soon as the gym closed for COVID in 2020 and 2021, I kind of had this space and this permission to look outside of just this physical self and physically helping people in the way that I had in the past through the Empath and the teas. And it just was a huge door that helped me understand that although I care about food and I care about, to some degree macros, not as much anymore, nothing matters except who is growing our food and who controls the food in our world. Mm-hmm. That's where the power is, and that's the money. Mm-hmm. This is the only deal when everything comes back to the food and who has it and who's spraying it. And then I look at the health issues that people are coming to me with, and just in general, the exponential rates increasing of autism and breast cancer. Yeah. All of these health issues all come back to the products being put on our food because they're not being grown correctly. So from that moment forward, it was like, I am an open vessel. How am I going to engage in this? I don't know, but I know that that's where I need to lean into, because for all of us, understanding as a nutritionist and a physical person and talking about food, it is now my duty to make sure that we go even one step deeper, because nothing matters with calories and macros and what your body looks like if we're going to run out of food in 3 years, unless we ourselves take that power back. So Peel is just a really grassroots initiative for us to understand the food supply chain. And it's a bridge between somebody who grows food and someone who's looking to buy food. So that could be a local business. It could be a food truck. It could be you yourself that wants to have local lemons. If you're in California, in Colorado, it would be more like, I would say peaches, if you wanted some more local peaches. But it's ultimately just connecting people to the area that they're in and showcasing, even though we do have a messed up food system and food would be completely off the shelves in 7 days if it wasn't imported from 1,500 miles away. We all ultimately are living in a food desert, whether we know it or not. Yeah. It's just a massive wake up call for us to say it is time for us to know where our food is coming from, for us to grow more food locally, and for us to demand that sprays stop being put on our food. Mm-hmm. And even organic certified has certain sprays that shouldn't be allowed on food. So what does that mean, and how do we navigate that? So it's just a big call to action. It looks little bit different depending on how you want to engage. But if you go to joinpeel.com, that's where the connection with understanding, okay, here's the problems, here's the solutions, or here's some solutions, here's how I can get engaged. But really, Nikki, what I'm trying to do with this, with the amazing group of support that I have, is helping revolutionize the food system so that we can grow food for restaurants that are next door to us, so that we don't have to go through this massive, messed up supply chain with millions of middlemen and very low paid workers with their hands being the one harvesting it, not getting even a cent that they need to survive. It's just a really powerful way to say, how can we change this? What can we do to change this? And how can we just be aware and be positive about it instead of just seeing it as it's broken, there's nothing we can do. We just have to rebuild it from the ground up.
Very well said. And what an endeavor. Because I know from, I work with people in mental health, right?
Yeah.
It's increasingly hard for me knowing that so much is pushing against the mental. And I think we're so trained to be so siloed in our thinking, oh, my mental stuff and then my physical stuff, as if it's all separate. And it's not. It really isn't. Our food has such a big impact on our mental health, on our physical health. And I don't think people realize, cancers, stomach cancers are frighteningly on the rise. The numbers are mind blowing. Part of that is because we eat so much crap that we're not supposed to be eating. It's as simple as that, but the solution isn't simple. Then we eat animals that are also eating depleted food. If those animals are depressed, we're also eating depressed it is such a massive, massive, massive issue. I look healthy to people. I look trim. I was having major absorption issues. That's how I got onto your TriMag. Because I was taking all kinds of magnesium. My body wouldn't absorb it, even though I have been eating organic for over 15 years.
Wow.
So we have so much that's pushing against us.
Yeah.
If we don't wrap our heads around how important it is to understand the root issue. We are eating every day, multiple times a day. Every time we put something in our mouth, we're putting all of whatever that is into our system. We have to understand how, I want to say dirty, but how dirty, we are not eating in a clean way that our bodies can process things. And if we don't we shouldn't have to, but it's just where we are, that we have to take so much individual personal responsibility. We are really being poisoned. And that's a hard thought. It's a scary thought. It's a thought nobody wants to think about their governments or chemicals on foods, but it's the truth of what's happening. And so what that means is that we each have to take a radical personal responsibility and just know that we have to clean up. And it's everything. It's not just food. I've been on a mission the last few years to change my entire wardrobe to natural fibers. It's microplastics too. We're wearing it, we're eating it. We have to get ahead of how much pushes against us so that we can rise above and expand.
We're drinking it,
Yep.
And that's also a part, because when we think about farming, nothing grows without water, and our water system is being leached into with all this runoff and the sprays. And it was just kind of one of the best visuals that really helps me understand and have hope, I think, for the future, is when we look at, let's just say, commercial agriculture and industrial farming. And then we also hear about water shortages and the water crisis and decreasing reservoirs and where's the water, right? Because water is constantly recirculating. One of the best visuals I went to Austin, Texas, outside of Austin, Texas, to Force of Nature, where they have this beautiful kind of, buffalo. I wouldn't say it's a ranch kind of, but they're just teaching people about regenerative agriculture and grazing practices and helping people get a really hands-on experience, while also, helping people have access to invasive species. So if we're going to eat meat, in my opinion, it's eat what is in way too much. And that's whether that's venison or that's wild boar, there's these animals that we have an abundance of in certain places that they don't even know what to do with. And yet we're still so set on chicken and turkey and lean meats and cow. It's it makes no sense. So there's all this abundance, but we're just not seeing it. And then this demo that someone did that was so beautiful, which was water pouring down on rain. And if it's in our backyard or if it's in a place that has native grasses and really well done soil that has the fungi where you can open it up and you can see the earthworms, you can see the mushrooms start to develop, the water just goes straight in and it absorbs, and all the roots, it allows it to get into that life cycle. Whereas if we're looking at commercial agriculture, it's just so hard. It pounds, it floods. It has nowhere else to go, right? So we've ripped land of native species and plants because we didn't like the way they looked. They weren't manicured enough. We replaced them with golf courses that use pesticides to make the grass that green. And now we're upset because we're flooding everywhere because there's nowhere for this rain to go. It can't go into the earth. It's no longer able to be absorbed. And when I first have these epiphanies, I'm like, oh my God, humans are a disaster. What are we doing? And then I just remember this is a reflection of humanity, as above, so below. So everything we are experiencing is going to be reflected in our earth. And so where are we blocked? And I just see the world blocked, right? You know this as well, especially even an empath can be blocked because it's too much to feel. So I'm going to block it. And that to me is this representation of, okay, every single thing, the gut microbiome is the mirror of the soil. Our magnesium depletion is a mirror of magnesium depletion in soil. This desire for us to absorb and feel this kind of purification, whatever that looks like, for us to feel hydrated, but this lack of our ability to receive, which is obviously a huge piece of what we're all working through, is how do we allow and receive? That is also the soil, like not able to absorb it and take it. So it goes back to what you said, like the individual healing that we're all going through. I believe the more and more this happens, when we wake ourselves up, we receive more, we really embody this true self that we are, this powerful true self, we will start to see that reflected in our outside world as well, the earth mirroring us. And at the same time, we have to change the way that we eat and grow food. And so the only way is small scale, local, like organic doesn't matter. Non-GMO doesn't matter. It has to be as local as possible. There's not going to be seasons where that's going to exist for some, especially in winter in Colorado. But even in the summer, in the spring, in the fall, there's so much potential for us to take what we currently have and put it into the food system. And hopefully more and more people are inspired to start a 1/4 acre or even a few garden boxes in their backyard and say, how can I not just grow basil for maybe this food truck that's down the street, but maybe for my whole entire neighborhood, so that they can stop getting it imported from Baja, Mexico, which is the #1 supplier for basil. Like Baja, Mexico, and Canada actually provide the entire United States with basil.
Wow.
Like imagine how far that is. And
basil's so easy to grow.
And the plastic that it's put in, and then the shelf life isn't actually that long. So what are we doing, for $4 for a couple leaves of basil when we should always be able to have that even in a pot indoors, So it's a connection that I believe if we really do tap into it, some people think they kill plants. Obviously, you have a green thumb with this beautiful background.
Well, I didn't always. I was like Captain Black Thumb for a very long time. I would cry. I would get a plant. I'd be like, I'm just like a plant murderer. It was a long journey. Like I learned how to take care of plants right along my journey of learning what it really meant to take care of myself.
Yes.
And the parallels there, y'all. I cannot express it. And the nuance that is so hard to put into words, the nuance with which I've had to learn how to pay attention to myself is the same nuance that the plants have given me, because I can see and I can feel and I can sense if they're thirsty or, oh, this one's stretching a little bit. It wants a little bit more sun. Oh, this one's burning. That's too much sun for this one. And I realize like it's so much more than you plop the plant in the pot and it grows. Like it is a living, breathing thing. And you develop this relationship with it. Yes. My plants in here, because they hear people talk, they grow. They really grow more when they feel people talk. And so I want to encourage people that if you think that you also are a plant murderer, Don't believe that you will always only be a plant murderer. Like,
Yes.
just give yourself permission that it's okay, that the plants don't take it personally. If they die, they'll come back. They don't take it personally. They're not people. In that way, they're very gracious to us. So it's okay. Open up, give yourself permission to kill, like, I don't know, like 50 plants. And by the end of the death of a lot of plants, you will also figure out how to grow those plants. And I will say this, you can look online and you can watch all kinds of videos where people say, this is an easy plant to grow. This is a hard plant to grow. That is all bull. Different plants will like to grow with you and will be like your buddy plant, and other plants, I don't care if people say it is the easiest plant ever in the whole world. If that plant is not meant for you, it will not grow with you. That is my experience. So there's so many lessons from plants.
Yes.
And from nature.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because yes, that's what it is. It's like this feeling of I'm not going to connect with it because I don't know its responsibility. It's going to die. I have a past memory of something dying, and then I feel guilt, and we don't need to feel any more guilt. But there's this engagement that happens that is about your own personal blossoming. And that's what just makes me emotional, because it's like nature is our biggest supporter. And even its death gave us something, right? It gave us something through that process, and it doesn't even care, because it just is here to help us breathe fresher oxygen and to be more alive and have less, impurities in the air. Like, it's just cleansing it out in every way. It's just this powerful gift, and it always finds a way, so if we can give ourselves this ability to say, okay, cool, I need to connect with nature. I know that I need to care about some food and growing food, and I don't know what that looks like. Even starting with just a little basil plant, I'm telling you, it is about our own connection of feeling like, holy shit, it's like the little earthworm. So yes, a million times. I don't even know what else I can say, because you said it so perfectly well. That's everything when it comes to this deep nurturing and nourishing that will ultimately, even though it doesn't feel like it, it is the give back to self, because it's so much bigger than just us. It's just so much bigger.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me, Nikki. It's such a pleasure. What a beautiful moment of talking about plants.
Yay, 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 yay. I will link to all of your amazing things under this episode, and we'll do this again.
I can't wait, Nikki. Thank you for being an emotional badass.
Thank you, madam. Light and love. Till next time. Bye-bye. I want to thank Emily for being on the show today, and again for her second appearance. You can check out all of her offerings at emilyschromm.com. That's EMILYSCHROMM.com. I'm an emotional badass. You are an emotional badass. And together, we are where Moxie meets mindful. Light and love. And I'll see you right here next time for a brand new episode. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.